Let the record reflect the meeting's reconvened with all members present, and I just arrived a few minutes ago, so I'm going to catch up myself. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I have a motion for the executive minutes of March 23rd, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
All right, a motion for the regular minutes of March 23rd, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone. Nice big crowd today. And maybe spring has really arrived after a little bit of return of the cold weather over the weekend, which reminds us that this Saturday we'll be hearing about it more, but May Day, one of the great things I brag about throughout the state, what happens in Madison, to see all the volunteers that come out. If you do the calculation, it's, close to 1,000 volunteers, a half a day, 4,000 hours of volunteer service in one morning. It's just incredible, and our town looks and smells great with the fresh mulch. On a sad note, I want to share the loss of Bob Beeman. He was a longtime volunteer on the Environment Commission. He was very active in Scouts, actually a very close friend of mine. He and I played softball together for many years, and please have his family and him in our hearts. Just a moment of silence for Bob Beeman. Thank you. I'm going to come down and take care of a few things here. Get the microphone, all right. All right, we have a proclamation that's actually not on the agenda right now. It's proclamation for Municipal Clerks Week. And Liz Osborne left town just so Patty could be here to accept this. And this is May 3rd through May 9th. Whereas the office of Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of Municipal Clerk provides a link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and the agencies, government at other levels. Whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of neutrality and impartiality and rendering equal service to all, and whereas municipal clerk serves as the information center on the functions of local government and community, and whereas municipal clerks continue to strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of municipal clerk through the participation in educational programs, which is where Liz Osborne is today, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize accomplishments of the office of municipal clerk, most notably Elizabeth Osborne and Patty Macaluso. So now, therefore, I, Robert H. Conley, Mayor of Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, hereby recognize the week of May 3rd through May 9th as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to the municipal clerk, Liz Osborne, and to all municipal clerks for their vital services that they perform and the dedication to the communities they represent. So, Patty, congratulations on... How many people in the room have had a chance to step into our clerk's office for information? Raise your hand. Look, and you're greeted with a smile every time, and you get what you need to know, right? That's what our clerk's office is all about. So thank you, Patty. I could have the members of the Downtown Development Commission come on up here, please. Any DDC members, come on up. Don't be bashful. You're not bashful in the meetings. Very good. We have a quorum, so they will not discuss any business. Let me have Kay Leary please come up at this point. So as we lead into May Day, as I mentioned before, Kay, I want you to come right up front and center here. Yes. Can we make 2 rows? Okay, we'll put John and Mark in the front and everyone else in the.
There we go, see?
And actually, if I could have the other seniors that have come here along with Kate today. All right. No, they're all here. Okay. So as I talked about May Day, I talked about the great volunteer effort that happens on that day, but there's a great volunteer effort that happens before that and during and following. And what we have done over the years from the DDC is have the Leading the Way to Make Madison Beautiful Awards. And so this year, we have 3 to present. The first one going to Kay Leary and the seniors of Madison. And they are being honored as they spend May Day delivering water all over town to our thirsty volunteers. And boy, do I appreciate that water when it arrives. And Kay and her crew have shouldered responsibility for this for many years, and we wouldn't get nearly as much accomplished at all our sites without essential hydration, with a smile and much needed encouragement. So for that, we present you with the May Day Committee Leading the Way to Make Madison Beautiful Award. Okay. Oh, yeah, DDC, stay up here, and staying. Judy, we're really going to push you now because I'm going to call up Boy Scout Troop 7 and Venture Crew 77, and we're not going to get them in all the picture. But can I have the scouts in the room please come forward? Okay. Yeah. Have the, Boy Scout Troop 7 and Venture Crew 77 have a long history of service to May Day through the adoption of James Park. The Boy Scouts' spring beautification of this park can be traced all the way back to 1965, and every generation of Scouts has since dedicated time cleaning it up and caring for this beautiful park. Their record of service is long and proud, so for that, we present you with May Day Committee Leading the Way to Make Madison Beautiful Award to Boy Scout Troop 7 and Venture Crew 77. Thank you so much. All right, congratulations. Now we can. And can Mike Kopus just please step forward? Mike is one of those volunteers who wears many hats for Madison, and we are proud of him, as is Drew University, as that is where he gets paid, but this is where you spend a lot of your time. Mike Kopus has graciously and faithfully tended to the Civic Center grounds on Walnut Street year after year, bringing his staff of the Drew facilities to help, and they have made quick work of a tough project, taming the weeds and making the Civic Center shine. It's not an easy task, and one that would be so much harder without Mike's outstanding support for this site and on May Day. So on behalf of the DDC, present Mike Kopus with Leading the Way Award, making Madison beautiful. All right, we have one more. Bring that up. Asha, please come forward with your family.
That's a good surprise.
And welcome back. I hate when that happens. So, as you may know, that every year there's a contest to design a shirt for May Day, and this year's winner is Asha Sinha, a fourth grade student at Tori J. Sabatini, and her design, which is right over here, will be on the shirts, over 1,000 shirts on May Day, proudly worn by all our May Day volunteers, and I keep mine because I'm so proud of our Madison artists every year. And tonight we have your original artwork framed, and we want to thank Rose City Frame Makers for framing that for you, and also want to thank all the supporters of May Day, because your artwork is on the front of the shirt, but on the back will be a list of many, many sponsors that donate to make May Day happen. So, without all that support and without your great artwork, that could not happen. So here we go. Congratulations. And I love that you've got some of the key sites of Madison, the clock, the train station. Excellent job. Family got pictures and all? Okay, well done. I'll see you on May Day. Take care. EDC, thank you. Okay. That's why I wanted to, let me get the resolution. Yep. May I have a motion for Resolution 128?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please. Actually, let me read that by
Read it
title.
first, yeah?
Yeah. Can some,
Patty will read.
128. What is it you want me to read?
Number 128.
Rob, you're the liaison to,
Sure.
so can you read that
I
one?
just have to find it.
Here it is.
Oh, thank you. Where's one for me to read it? Oh,
You don't have to read.
thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Resolution R 128-2015. Resolution of the Madison Borough Council appointing Thomas M. Boylan to the position of probationary firefighter.
All right, now we'll try that again. And may I have a
So moved.
second on that? Okay, roll call vote?
Yes. Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Tom Boylan, please come forward and so we can swear in our newest firefighter. And also, I understand your parents are here. And Chief, please come forward. Or whoever you want to have hold the Bible, help swear you in. Raise your right hand, or there we go. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Thomas M. Boylan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of
all the duties of
firefighter for the Borough of Madison,
firefighter for the Borough of Madison,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly swear
I further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and I will bear true faith
and that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Let him clear out, Mayor, for like
Okay,
a
we're
minute.
going to just have a brief moment to let the crowd file out, but remember you are welcome to stay. But please,
Do it downstairs.
remember the hallways do echo, so if you are out there, keep the conversations quiet.
Yeah, I'm sure. Or maybe in the clerk's office.
Okay, reports from committees, Community Affairs, Oster Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. The first annual Madison Avenue Challenge was held between FDU and Drew University last Thursday. Drew won it 4-2, but it was a very close game. It was tied in the bottom of the seventh. We want to thank the Madison Little League and Zach Ellis, our Recreation Director, for organizing this event. And DDC wants to remind everybody, May Day is next Saturday, or this Saturday. There's still time to sign up. We need all hands to help to do our annual cleanup. And for the seniors I'm sorry, I have the piece of paper right here. They had an April 22nd spring luncheon honoring the tax volunteers. There were 28 guests attending. The RSVP counselors assisted 218 area residents over 10 Wednesdays with federal and state income tax forms. Romanelli's catered a delicious meal, and Nora Stewart was recognized for her leadership of the Friends of the Madison Senior Center with flowers and a gift certificate, which she says will come in handy as she decorates her new apartment in Chatham. Cub Scout Pack number 7 from St. Vincent's did a great job on April 15th of clearing the winter debris from around the perimeter of the grounds of the Senior Center, competing for most garbage picked up, visiting with Mayor Conley, and enjoying some well-earned refreshments. And we look forward to returning to work on Monday, May 4th to see what volunteers at the annual May Day cleanup have accomplished in the garden areas. And on Friday, May 29th, high school students will be planting new ground cover near the Civic Center entrance as part of the annual Day of Service. They will also be traveling around town to help seniors with light cleaning and yard work. And the Chamber of Commerce had a very successful home expo. It was their first. It occurred Saturday, April 25th at the Madison Community House. 20 local businesses shared their expertise and product information with the public free of charge. Local experts, outstanding results was the motto. Ladies' Night in Madison is being held on May 7th. Shopper registration for the event is at Short Stories, and the first 100 registrants will receive a gift bag of items and special offers donated by Madison businesses. At the Chamber monthly board meeting on April 7th, the directors selected 7 businesses and individuals for recognition at the awards dinner that will be held June 9th at the Madison Hotel. And they will, the names of the recipients will be published soon. The annual Extra Mile Award will also be presented at that dinner. This award, given for constant, outstanding customer service by an individual at a Chamber member business, is selected by Madison shoppers and diners. Ballots will be distributed in May. At the Chamber annual election for members of the Board of Directors was conducted from April 9th to 25th via an online survey. Per the Chamber's bylaw, approximately 1/3 of the board stands for election each year. Chamber directors are charged with ensuring the organization's well-being, managing its assets, and electing its 4 officers. 24 individuals currently serve on the board. The Chamber's annual trip to Yankee Stadium is on July 19th when New York faces the Seattle Mariners. The game starts at 1:05 p.m. Tickets will go on sale soon. And another item is that Drew University has a very nice article in this magazine, their magazine, on town gown affairs, featuring, among others, our mayor, Bob Conley, and our longtime community volunteer, Mike Kopis. And Drew University is also going to be honoring our mayor at its commencement. He will be receiving an honorary doctorate degree. So congratulations to the mayor. I'll end there.
Okay, well, boy, nice spot there. Public Safety, Mr. Catanello.
Thank you very much, Dr. Conley.
Thank you.
Sorry. In advance, I won't be around, so I won't
That's
be the first to congratulate you. The fire department responded yesterday to an attic fire at number 2 Rosewood off of Park Avenue, 12:18 p.m. Homeowner had turned on the whole house fan located in the attic. It did not come on immediately. After 20 to 30 minutes, homeowner noticed lights were starting to dim. Upon inspection of the attic stairs, he observed the attic full of smoke. Quickly called 911. Upon arrival, the fire department found items that were stored in the attic below the fan were burning. Quick action with a water extinguisher put out the fire. Fire department used a fan to ventilate the attic of smoke and then check for further fire. There were none. Fire department disconnected power to the attic fan and advised the owner to call his electrician to replace the fan motor. There was no damage to living space and no injuries. Fire department was back in quarters within an hour, 1:10 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Utilities, Ms. Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor. From the electric department, all the crews completed confined space training course, which is very, very important. Most of our employees take this class, but it's the electric and the fire department that runs this. They also installed new poles on Durwood Place and Borough Parking Lot number 2. And they've installed all of the 3-phase bank of transformers to service of 39 Green Village Road, which is doing very nicely. As I reported a couple of weeks ago, it's being built at this point, and it's really coming along very well. They usually have line clearance, service upgrades and removals, mark-out requests, and also they've been working on installation of a ceiling insulation at the water and light garage. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Finance and Borough Clerk, Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mayor. The Borough, on April 15th, made its semi-annual interest payment on its outstanding debt totaling approximately $375,000. On October 15th, they will make another payment totaling approximately $1.7 million. And finally, Nisovace is in here in the borough right now doing its audit of our finances. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Health, Mr. Wolkowitz.
Thank you, Mayor. First, a reminder that screening for Women's Cancer Clinic will be held this coming Wednesday, May 6th. Coming Wednesday a week, sorry about that. And it will be at the Civic Center at 28 Walnut Street, starting at 9:30 a.m. Appointments are necessary, so if you have interest in going, by all means, call the health department and arrange for that. There is no cost unless you have a test that would be recommended on site, and that would cost $25. And then I have an update. You probably have gotten bored hearing me talk about animal licensing. We are now in a grace period. The period for which those licenses could have been acquired without a late fee is over. This grace period will go until May 31st. After that, you're in violation of state statute and borough ordinance, and you may receive a summons for noncompliance. It's a lot of trouble just to get a license. So by all means, if you haven't done it, you have to pay your extra $10 and get a license taken care of. There is one item I just want to point out. We'll be talking about it in more detail, and that has to do with legislation regarding religious exemptions for inoculations. It's an interesting topic. I did mention it once before. There is now some pending legislation, and we will be asking this council for action.
Thank you. And Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I have a statement from the Madison Environmental Commission about one of the items on our agenda tonight. The Madison Environmental Commission fully endorses the adoption of the land use ordinance that will prohibit unregulated private companies like Pilgrim Pipeline from placing a pipeline in Madison. The Board of Public Utilities cannot regulate the activity of a private company. Madison draws its water from the buried aquifer below the town, which would be threatened by a pipeline disruption. The ordinance will protect the health, safety, and property values of our residents. With Chatham Township adopting a similar ordinance on Thursday night, Madison can provide leadership to its neighboring communities as well. And then from the Engineering Department, roads, the Ridgeville Avenue plans and specs bid opening is scheduled for May 14th. The second round of New Jersey DOT municipal funding aid for this project was authorized in the amount of $160,000. Public Service Electric and Gas started gas main replacement work on Ridgedale last week in advance of the municipal road reconstruction work planned for this summer. The PSC&G work consists of over 3,000 feet of new gas main, which will end at Central Ave, followed by the replacement of individual gas services to the homes. A second informal public meeting is scheduled to discuss the proposed Morris County Central Avenue modifications that will be held this Friday at 1 o'clock in the courtroom at Hartley Dodge Memorial. And, library. The bid opening for the HVAC system replacement, ceiling, and lighting repairs at the public library took place last Thursday. The bids are being reviewed for conformance with local public contracts requirements, and recommendations for award or rejection are required within 60 days. And I also want to publicly thank the people who replaced the lights over my head with these wonderful LEDs. It's cooler and it's not as bright. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Any communications or petitions?
Yes, there are. Email dated April 14, 2015, from Allison Johannesson of Shady Lawn Drive regarding roadway repairs to Shady Lawn Drive. An email dated April 16, 2015, from Ken Ware of Anthony Drive on behalf of Madison Little League, thanking Mayor and Council and the Electric and Public Works Departments for their efforts regarding playing fields. Email dated April 21st, 2015, from Sherrod Gupta of Buckingham Drive regarding field closures April 21st. And an email dated April 21st, 2015, from Beth Riley of Maple Avenue regarding introduced ordinance 28-2015 prohibiting unregulated pipelines.
Thank you. We are now on to the first of two invitations for discussion. This one is limited to items on the agenda discussions and also resolutions that are consent agenda. Any ordinances have hearings and you'll be able to comment on those, or you can comment on anything at our second round later in the agenda. The items that are up for discussion today, item 1 has been pushed back to a later meeting. Item 2 is the amending chapter, ordinance to amend chapter 166 entitled Street and Sidewalks of Madison Borough Code for sidewalk dining licenses, and then The other item, as Mr. Wolkowitz mentioned, is a discussion to support legislation clarifying exemptions from immunizations. And just for the DDC, I know we'll have a formal presentation or comments on the ordinance, so hold off until we actually get to that agenda item. This is just a public comment at this point. Individual committee members may comment, but the official part will be part of the council discussion. So with that, anyone wishing to discuss those agenda items or resolutions, please step forward, state your name, your address, write the same on the clipboard, and then keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Anyone wishing to comment? And Russ, you, as chair, you'll come up during the, are you representing the DDC, I assume, on the dining? Correct. Yeah, so we'll call you up during the council discussion rather than have that during the public discussion. Okay? Anyone else wishing to comment? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. And we go to the first agenda discussion, which is sidewalk dining. And Chair, Russ Stern, would you like to please step forward and present this? Right over there, yes. This is Russell Stern, the chair of the DDC.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Speaking on behalf of the Downtown Development Commission, I'd like to say that the commission is in favor of this proposed ordinance. It's a much-needed ordinance, one that will stimulate the local economy and hopefully extend people's stay downtown through the consumption of wine and beer, and hopefully concentrate stay in Madison as a result of it. Right now we're competing with other towns or adjoining communities in not only with the internet for business, but also with our restaurants, and we're also competing with our adjoining regional or nearby regional centers, Morristown and Summit, and that have ordinances similar to this one for sidewalk consumption. I have to say I'm guilty for going out of town on a nice sunny day where I wanted to, and my wife and our friends wanted to go and have a meal outside and also have a glass of wine or a beer with it. And we left the community to do that. We took away our dollars to do that. As you know, the DDC's primary focus is enhancement of the downtown, and we do that through public improvements, and we do that through activities. So we, work on making the downtown beautiful through the hanging baskets, through the flags, which fly basically the entire year and attract attention as they move through the wind and draws your attention to it. We have a couple of programs that have further enhanced the downtown recently, the Sidewalk Art Gallery. So we have a lot of interest going on downtown with the art banners that are done by local artists, and then we also have sidewalk sounds now, and we're creating this great community, and adding uniqueness to the downtown area. So as you drive by, you see these different things, and what a wonderful town. I think that the sidewalk consumption ordinance really is a complement to that. The individuals that will stay will enjoy all these amenities of our downtown. As well as the people driving by will see more people at these establishments. Right now you go by 54 Main and it's just pretty barren. This gives the opportunity for them to extend their business outside and take that sidewalk up with human activity. And I believe that it will enhance more patronage of our downtown area and encourage the support of this ordinance by the mayor and the governing body. Thank you.
Before council discussion, any question for Russ before he sits down as related to the DDC?
Russ, do you know which towns around us actually currently allow the consumption of alcohol outdoors?
Morristown and Summit.
Okay. And I guess the second question, maybe it's not for you, but more for maybe the chief of police. Can we just touch base with the chiefs in those towns just to see if they've had any issues with that particular program?
I think
I assume not, otherwise
we
they
had,
wouldn't
the
endorse it.
DDC had, and,
Okay.
and actually the chief has also opined that he is fine with this ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Clarification, and as far as a licensed establishment, they would be regulated by ABC regulations also.
Correct.
So they, all right. And then before we discuss, John Morris, as a representative of Chamber, would you like to make any comments? Oh, yeah, good question for,
Yes, so, for the restaurants in town that have frontage on, say, Main Street, but also back in a parking lot, would the, outdoor dining be available on both sides, or just, one or the other?
Gonna jump in on that, Rob. The ordinance states that it's their primary entrance.
The primary
Primary
address,
entrance on Main Street, yep, so.
or Waverly, whatever it happens. Fair enough.
very good. Thank you, Jim. Okay. John Morris, President of Madison Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Just a couple words in support of this ordinance. In a formal respect, the Chamber's Land Use Committee, which you might have heard about, looks at general areas where businesses are controlled and licensed, and they came up with about 7 or 8 proposals. And for the last number of years, this particular proposal has been at the top of the list. Main idea being is that it'll allow people to spend more time downtown, especially on a beautiful night when the sun's going down. It's another component, it's another thing that we as a town can do. We have a special town, and people will see it, I think, more and appreciate it and absorb it more, absorb our architecture, our history, our community, and our people by increasing the opportunity for street sidewalk traffic and people visiting to town. So that's one thing. 2 quick anecdotes that I heard secondhand over the last couple of years. One was a couple, they were celebrating their anniversary as a surprise. The husband wanted to come downtown, have a nice bottle of wine, share it outside, and have it outside with a meal. Lo and behold, it wasn't allowed. That's just one instance. And something I heard the other day, and this is more on a larger business matter and an investment matter. Again, I don't know the details at secondhand, but there was a business, a restaurant, successful business that happened to have a fire in a different town, and they were looking at places to land, and Madison was one of the places. And it was reported that they didn't consider Madison once they found out that sign-out dining was not allowed. So this ordinance, I think, when we think about long-term investment in this town and people investing in their businesses, it's one more thing that we as a community can do to business owners and how they invest their money in our town and what we're like. As I said about the Land Use Committee, it's a formal organization. We've been talking about this for a number of years. Sam DeAngelis is the chair of that committee. The Chamber Board has been apprised of all the meetings and minutes and resolutions from that committee. So I can't tell you with certitude that the Chamber Board approves this. We have a meeting on Tuesday. But I don't recall ever hearing anybody on the board be against this idea in general. But of course, all business owners might have their own idea about it in a larger sense or in a smaller sense, so they'll have an opportunity to talk about that. But just to summarize, I think the Chamber is always good about increasing the possibility of opportunity for everyone. We have a number of great restaurants in town. This is another thing for them to pursue.
Any questions for John before we go to council discussion? Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Right. Council discussion? Bob?
Mayor, I read this very thoroughly, and about 2 years ago, I had talked to a former police chief of Summit in regards to this same issue. And this ordinance really addresses every one of his concerns in regards to the hours of operation, the permitting, the fact that a lot of this is probationary. That said, my son goes out with a girl in New York City, so once in a while I drive into the city. And what's interesting is when you're coming back from Manhattan and you drive through Madison, you notice one thing. Even though maybe it's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, the streets are empty. The reason is very simple. People are inside. What makes a town attractive, and if you think about when you're shopping, what stores do you go to where you see people? If you walk by a store that's empty, you don't see people, you're not going to go in. Well, that kind of holds true to a town as well. By allowing people to dine and drink on the sidewalk with the rules and regulations in this ordinance, what you're doing is you're making this town look alive. You're making it attractive to people to come here and eat and enjoy themselves. And let's face it, this is all about competition. We're competing with Morristown, I forget some of the other towns. I believe Summit has this in place as well. We're competing with some pretty heavy hitters, and we have to give our restaurants a chance to be on equal footing. So I think this is a very good ordinance and very well timed.
Thank you. Other comments? Ben?
Yeah, I have no idea if I'm the only one who had this concern, but when I read it, I was somewhat concerned by the fact that the restaurateurs are required to bring in all this furniture every evening. But in questioning it, I understand this is a result of the way we clean our streets, some concern about public safety, et cetera. So with that minor exception, which I now fully understand, I'm very much in favor of this. Thank you.
Other? Carmel?
You know, I'm happy to finally see this happen. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but like it seems like 100 years ago now, but I think Jiggs Mantone really wanted, after the pavers were done, that was the, you know, that was a big thing, is to encourage people to stay in Madison. I mean, he loved Madison, so he wanted people to stay here and enjoy it as much as he did. So I am happy to see this come back. I'm happy to see that you have support, you know, for it. And I think it's going to be excellent. There's so many great ways of doing it. If you go up to Massachusetts or you go into Rhode Island and you see some of these wonderful towns doing some of it, I mean, they fix it up so that there's lights around each one of their little spots and whatever. So there's a lot you could do here. So hopefully it'll finally happen for you guys. Thanks.
Any other comments? And for the public to understand, obviously we've had a dining regulation in place already, and making sure that there's passageways for people to walk by we're not changing that. So the restaurants still have to make sure it's clear. One of the key things here, this is limited to restaurants that have wait table service. So there is a level of supervision of what's going on. And since I was out of town for a week, the smoking, Jimmy, if you want to cover that quickly.
Sure, Mayor, I'll jump in on a couple other things too that are in the ordinance that are more legal. There's an increased insurance coverage requirement for the restaurants that was changed when we updated this ordinance. The restaurant will now have to enter into an agreement with the borough to indemnify the borough in case there are issues, and will also have to enter into an agreement to maintain the sidewalk area should it be damaged. And there is, I believe on the last page of the ordinance, restaurants must comply with the provisions of the Smoke-Free Air Act, including displaying the appropriate designed site-specific conditions for smoking, and moreover, in accordance with NJSA statute, et cetera, smoking is prohibited at the sidewalk dining establishment of smoking if the smoke in the exterior area results in migration into the indoor public space.
Okay. Thank you. Another quick question, but I've lost it already. Sorry. Oh, well. I'll think of it before the hearing. So this is Ordinance 33, which will be introduced tonight, and then we'll have a hearing in 2 weeks. Going on to item number 3, or actually 2 for tonight. Support legislation clarifying exemptions from immunizations. Ben?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening we have on our consent agenda Resolution R-141-2015. What this pertains to is something I've spoken about before, and that is the issue of exemptions for mandatory inoculations for religious reasons. To refresh your memories, during the recent measles epidemic, concern was raised over the number of school children in the state who had not had appropriate inoculations. In New Jersey, the number of such children showed a significant increase after the qualifications for claiming a religious exemption for vaccinations were eased significantly in 2007. To demonstrate the effect of that, from 2005 to 2006, that school year, there were 1,641 claims for religious exemptions. After this easing, in school year 2013 to 2014, the number had risen to 8,977, a 5+ times increase. On March 9th of this year, the Senate Health and Senior Services Committee released from their committee Bill number 1147 for consideration by the entire Senate. In response, on March 16th, 2015, the New Jersey Assembly Health and Senior Services Committee released Assembly Bill 1931 for consideration by the full Assembly. These are companion bills. They explicitly recognize that there may well be religious reasons for requesting an exemption for vaccination. However, the requirements are made more stringent by these bills than they are currently. Parents are required to provide a notarized letter explaining the nature of the religious practice or tenet that would be violated if their child were to have a vaccination. In addition, parents have to include a statement in their letter that they understand the risks and benefits of inoculations to the child and the public health, and that the state health commissioner, in the case of an outbreak of a communicable disease, may exclude their child from attendance. Neither bill has been brought to a vote, surprisingly enough. And the reason may well be the rather large and vocal turnout in opposition to both bills when they were discussed in committee. The reasons that were brought up at those times didn't always have anything to do with religion, although some did. Many other and really not pertinent concerns were raised by the audience. But the short of it is that these bills, as I said, have not come to a vote. Obviously, the proponents are concerned, and among those proponents is our own Board of Health. The reason for the concern is that if voting on these bills is not carried out during this term, it is more than likely not to be carried out in the next term of the Senate and Assembly because we'd be going into elections. If that were the case, we'd be sitting here now a year away from effective legislation to do what is obviously not only in children's health, a decision we can't make for parents, but is certainly in the general public health of children in general. So for that reason, our Board of Health, and I would like to ask you all to support Resolution 141-2015, send a message that this borough is in favor of passage of these bills. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Ben? Okay, this resolution is listed on the consent agenda. Thank you for bringing that forward. Ordinances for hearing. Can the clerk please read the statement?
Yes, ordinances scheduled for hearing were introduced by title and passed on the first reading at a regular meeting of the council held on Monday, April 13, 2015. All were posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
Okay, what we're going to do tonight for the hearings is I'm going to combine ordinances together. They will all each be read separately by title and voted on separately, but the hearings will be combined by area of appropriation, because we have a lot of ordinances that are part of the capital budget appropriating. So the first hearing will be for items that are from the general capital, so it's ordinances 19 through 22, ordinances 24, 25, and 26. And very quickly, it's 19 is 11,000 for firefighting gear. 20 is 10,000 for thermal imaging. 21 is 180,000 for purchase a truck for the road department. 22 is 120,000 for purchase of 2 trucks with accessories. 24 is purchase of new pump, $60,000. 25 is 32,000 for purchase of a hot box for the road department, and 26 is appropriating 10,000 for crimping machine for mechanical services department. So anyone in the public wishing to comment on any of those ordinances, please step forward and state your name, your address, and make your comments related to these are general capital appropriation. Seeing none, I close the hearing and ask the clerk to read ordinance 19-25.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $11,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of 4 sets of firefighting turnout gear.
Mayor, I move ordinance 19-2015.
Second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 19-2015 adopted and finally passed, and I ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance with accordance with the law. Ordinance 20-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $10,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a thermal imaging camera.
Mayor, I move ordinance 20-2015.
Second.
Council discussion. Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 20-2015 adopted and finally passed, and I ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 21-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $180,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a truck with accessories for the road department.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 21-2015.
I second.
Council discussion. Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 21-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 22-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $120,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of 2 trucks with accessories.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 22-2015.
I second.
Council discussion. Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 22-2015 adopted and finally passed, and I ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now we're going to jump down to ordinance 24-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $60,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a new pump in the sewer department.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 24-2015.
I second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 24-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 25-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $10,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a crimping machine for the Mechanical Services Department.
Wait, were we reading 25 or 26?
I'm sorry, ordinance 25-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $32,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a hot box for the road department.
Mr. Mayor, I now move ordinance 25-2015.
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 25-2015 adopted and finally passed, and I ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now ordinance 26-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $10,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a crimping machine for the Mechanical Services Department.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 26-2015.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare, ordinance 26-2015 adopted and finally passed, and I ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. All right, now we'll go to the hearing for water capital. So this is ordinance 23-2015 appropriating $85,000 for skid steer for the water department, and ordinance 27, which is $10,000 for well upgrades. Anyone in the public wishing to comment on these two ordinances, please step forward, keep your comments 3 minutes less, and state your name and address. Seeing none, I close the hearing for ordinances 23 and 27, and ask the clerk to read ordinance 23 by title.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $85,000 from the Water Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a skid steer with attachments for the Water Department.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 23-2015.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 23-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And ordinance 27-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $10,000 from the Water Capital Improvement Fund for well upgrades.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 27-2015.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 27-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 28-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 195-5 titled Prohibited Uses of the Land Development Ordinance of the Borough of Madison prohibiting unregulated pipelines in any zoning district.
I open the hearing for ordinance 28-2015 and ask anyone in the public wishing to comment, please step forward and state your name and your address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Sally Rubin, and I'm the Executive Director at the Great Swamp Watershed Association. First of all, I'd just like to comment that I spent 6 years on the township committee in my town, and it was frequently a thankless job, so I would like to take the opportunity to thank you all for your service to your community. Now, for my comments regarding the ordinance, the mission of the Great Swamp Watershed Association is to preserve and protect the water resources in our region, where we currently in Madison and 9 other towns in southeast Morris and northern Somerset County. I believe that the passage of this ordinance will go a long way towards continuing the protection of these resources. I commend you for doing so, and you have my full support on the passage of this ordinance. The potential for damage to the environment, whether it be the wildlife, the habitat, or probably most importantly to the public in terms of pollution of our water resources for public consumption, would be catastrophic. We have the construction of a potential pipeline which would destroy habitat and wildlife, maintenance of any corridor that would be constructed for the pipeline, and then most importantly, any leak that could potentially occur, because it would be underground, could go undetected for a significant period of time. But even a very brief period of time would have the consequences of polluting the rivers and streams, and which provide drinking water from the Passaic River, which provides drinking water for over 1 million residents in New Jersey, but also right here in Madison, where you get your water from the Buried Valley Aquifer. And cleanup of an oil spill would just contaminate your public drinking water for not only ourselves and our grandchildren, but probably their grandchildren also. And while passage of an ordinance is not a guarantee that we will not be stuck with some sort of a pipeline, because this is an unregulated pipeline ordinance and it's not protected by the BPU or regulated by the BPU, each and every town has to take measures such as yourselves are doing this evening to try and preserve and protect our water resources, our wildlife, our habitat, and our public and residents. So not only do I encourage you to pass the ordinance this evening, but I hope that you'll tell all of your neighbors.
You can smile, nod your head, but hold off on the applause. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody. Mayor Connolly, good to see you again. Borough Administrator Ray Cody, good to see you. And for you, Carmela, from our meeting when we were talking about the pipeline back in November. And I know that the funny thing is,
Brendan, state your name and
Brendan
address.
Keating from Chatham Borough. Thanks for having me back. I just wanted to remark today about, I was sitting here listening to all of the things that the council is doing to make sure that Madison remains like a fantastic place to come. Like, I live in Chatham, and I come and hang out in Madison all the time because we don't have the downtown vibrancy that you guys do. And you're spending all this money on upgrading the water system. You know, if there was a pipeline that would come through, and we share the Buried Valley Aquifer, even though we have a border between us, it's the same problem in the borough in Madison that you guys have. And I'm working on doing the same thing in my town as well. And I really applaud, you know, Madison from standing up and doing what's really a progressive thing. But I just wanted to point out too that this isn't just about, you know, one specific pipeline. This is about preserving the way of life that everybody is working so hard to make in Madison. You know, as you can tell, I'm a kind of a big guy. I eat a lot of pizza. You know, I can't go to Romanelli's or Rocco's or Italian Village if you don't have water, you can't make pizza. You know, I can't go and enjoy the water slide down at the municipal pool if there's no water because it's been contaminated by carcinogens. We're not talking about just a specific pipeline. We're talking about protecting a way of life that this town has gone so far to really make a model that a lot of other towns in this community, including mine, you know, look up to. I really applaud you guys for doing everything that you're doing here. And, you know, just want to let you know this is not about a specific instance. This is about, as Sally from Great Swamp said, this is about protecting for the next 100 years and saying that this is not something that Madison needs. This is not an issue about jobs or commerce. This is about keeping Madison the way that Madison is supposed to be. And I just wanted to thank you for taking that step.
Thank you, Brendan. Anyone else wishing to be heard? And Brett, did you write your name and address on? Okay. Do we need to?
Yeah, it would
thank
help.
you. Yeah, thank you. Got.
Borough Council Mayor. My name is Terry Ziegler. I live in Madison, and I attended the meeting that was held, the information session, back in February, and I've been to the Chatham Citizens meeting with Brendan Keating, and we, the citizens of Madison, are keenly aware of how important it is to protect our water source. So we really would like to ask you to vote for this ordinance for the constituents of Madison. And we are also working hard to establish a Madison Action Committee that is similar to the Chatham Citizens as a way to disseminate the information that regarding the proposed pipeline and any information that would come out of tonight's meeting. So if there is anybody that would be interested in signing up for the Madison Action Committee and being on any mailing lists, I'm here tonight to take names and email addresses. So, and I'll be out front after the meeting.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 28-2015.
I'll second.
Council discussion.
They've said everything.
Rob? Yeah.
So at the last meeting, I, you know, voiced concern over the constitutionality of the proposed ordinance. I see that just before the meeting started, Ray sent out some an opinion that essentially states that, in fact, this does not violate the Constitution. I made inquiries in the previous 2 weeks after this was announced, and I got varying answers. Again, I take my oath of office very seriously, so I could never knowingly vote for something that I felt violated the United States Constitution. Regardless of that, it's apparent that this ordinance is specifically designed to stop a particular pipeline that, for personal reasons, I had to vote on, I had to abstain voting on in the past. So I feel that, you know, since we're just, doing this to block a specific pipeline. I must abstain, although I have grave reservations about, passing something that I think is just not unconstitutional because of the oath of office that I took. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Hey, Bob?
No, I agree with Rob, the Constitution is important. But I did a little homework on the Constitution and specifically about eminent domain. And you just have to bear with me, my printer at home died, so I had to scribble this down, so just bear with me. Evidently on June 23, 2006, President George W. Bush issued Executive Order 13406, which stated that the government must limit its use of taking private property for public use, and if it does so, it must do so with just compensation for the purpose of benefiting the general public. But then it went on to say the order limits this use by stating that it may not be used for the purpose of advancing the economic intent or interest of a private party to be given the use of or ownership of this property. So what George W. Bush was effectively saying is, yeah, eminent domain is one thing, and I've never been a big fan of that, somebody coming along and taking your property, but he recognized the fact that you have to be very careful when you're imposing eminent domain for the benefit of a private enterprise, and this Pilgrim Pipeline is being built by a private enterprise. So in addition to the environmental concerns, which I'm with 100%, for George W. Bush to come out with an executive order such as this, it tells me, I understand Rob's concern about the Constitution, but this is the President of the United States saying you got to be darn careful when you're going to do this, and this is a private enterprise, and there are other alternatives than piping oil through a very densely populated area of the state. Thank you, Mayor.
Just one before you go, Rob. I just want, if you need to recuse yourself because of a conflict, it's not just a vote, it is also discussion.
Okay.
I did let you go because you
I'm
kind of
assuming I have to. Well, in the past, I had to recuse
John can
myself,
clarify
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think if you're recusing yourself, you should recuse yourself from the whole matter.
Sure.
You've got
Okay.
But I don't know what your conflict is, so.
Do you want to know? I mean,
It's personal, but I mean, if you believe you have one.
Well, Matt thought I did.
Then,
Right.
since he's smarter than I am, I would.
Well, I don't know about that. He might be more handsome than you, but I don't know about the brains. Fair enough. I'm just going to say one thing, and that is I agree with Bob. I think eminent domain for for-profit entities is a joke, and I fully support any ordinance that we want to write that would ask our state or federal representatives to actually do something about it and change the law. I don't think that this ordinance does that, but I am totally in favor, and I couldn't agree more with Bob. So
Okay.
I'll recuse myself.
Okay. Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, I have been involved in environmental causes in this area for quite some time, and I'd like to just say, one, thank you to the three people who spoke on behalf of this ordinance, and I would also just like to say that there are many skirmishes in this battle to try and keep our environment pristine, or as close to pristine as you can hope to get it, given what's happened to it already. We need to take each of those quite seriously. It's very easy to say, oh, well, it's a pipeline, we got a bunch of pipelines, who cares? Or here's another one, it's New Jersey, what are you going to do? So I just want to say that, one, I will happily vote in favor of this ordinance, and two, I would like to thank all those people who came out in February and who have been in support of this all along. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments? Pat?
I agree with Rob and Bob about eminent domain. I fully support blocking any any private entity from being able to exercise eminent domain. But as both noted, this really is not about that. The concern that I have is that, and it's similar to well, we were going to have a discussion, but what Ben brought up about vaccinations. We live in an integrated society. It's not as simple as, we're going to block the pipeline, the oil's not going to flow. The oil is moving. The question is, how is it going to get from point A to point B? And right now, it's moving, I think, primarily by barge. It's going to also move by rail. I'm not certain either one of those. In fact, I'm certain rail is not a preferable option to moving it via pipeline. I am concerned about Madison being in the line of fire if something like this ever came through here. And so I've been fairly ambivalent about supporting these measures because I think we have to, as residents of this country, take a larger look at just what's in the best interest of Madison, but what's in the best interest of everybody. So that's why I have not been supporting the specific actions blocking this, and I'm still debating this. I also still believe that on a constitutional basis, we cannot stop something via zoning laws. I think at the end of the day that we're not going to have a leg to stand on, and I hate the idea that we're going to spend any time and money trying to defend an ordinance that is going to be deemed unconstitutional. And that's specifically what we're being asked to vote on tonight. So those are my thoughts on it right now.
Thank you. Any other comments? Austria?
I fully support it. I'm concerned about the aquifer. I'm concerned about our neighborhoods. I don't think our neighborhoods want unregulated pipelines in their backyards. I think it is one step. It tells the courts where we stand, and I think it's a good defense.
Carmella?
I'd also like to thank everybody that's come out tonight in support of this ordinance. It's been something that I've been very interested in right from the beginning. So I applaud Brendan for bringing us all of the information. And Teresa spoke about, people getting together. Getting information out and getting correct information is probably one of the most important things that we could do. So, I fully support, you getting as many people as you possibly can, because that's how we reach this point. We spent a lot of time, and Austria could talk about this better than anybody, when we bought the property over that is now the MRC. And one of the main reasons was to protect that aquifer and our water. And I just feel that this is one more step, in helping, whatever it is, I'm willing to defend it. I don't think that it'll come to that, but who knows? But I think that we should be able to stand and defend, our position in this. So I definitely will be voting yes on this.
Ben?
Yeah, I also think there's a question of the dynamics of how this plays out. So if all of the affected municipalities were to pass comparable ordinances, if I were a stockholder in this particular company that has this Pilgrim pipeline in mind, I think I would be suggesting that we look to some alternative way of moving the oil. And indeed, if my memory serves me correctly, most of those alternatives tend to have fewer spills than pipelines. And a pipeline, when a train has a wreck and there's a massive explosion, clearly that's publicity of a negative sort that you can't ignore. But if you look at it just in terms of environmental impact, we're talking about something that scores very high on the negative scale. So I think we need to keep that in mind as well. And I understand there may be constitutional issues and there may be issues as to the value of this ordinance in actually preventing something from happening. I think if we don't do anything and this pipeline goes through, we only have ourselves to say we could have done something and we had an opportunity and we should have taken it. So I'm going to take it.
And one of the things, just on follow up on your comment there, Ben, that Brendan had pointed out at the informational hearing we had is, let's say for sake of argument, all three methods, barge, train, or four methods, truck and pipeline, are all equal in danger, which they're not. But one of the four is not scalable, and that is a pipeline. Once a pipeline is in place, it is in place forever, as opposed to if you're producing more crude oil, more barges run, and if all of a sudden there's alternative sources and oil use goes down, the barges are off the river. So that was one of the good takeaways I had from that moment. Pat, you had another comment?
I was going to say, one of the challenges is that when you go out and research this, there's not a ton of information, and depending on who you believe, each one of the three is the worst choice. Actually, the fourth is trucking, which is absolutely the worst by everybody's measure. The biggest challenge with rail is that it's relatively new. There hasn't been a lot of petroleum products moving by rail until recently, till the Bakken field was discovered. But the one thing that the government did do was when they were analyzing the Keystone Pipeline and deciding what they thought was the worst, they didn't analyze barge traffic because that wasn't really a viable option. But they did say that rail traffic was had significantly more spills and cumulatively worse, a more negative impact in terms of the volume of spills. And that left off the whole, exploding rail cars in the middle of Bergen County, for instance, which would be a huge disaster. So again, that's the other challenge, is there really isn't a lot of good research or a lot of what I would call definitive opinions about, or definitive information about what is really the better way to go. I think it all depends on which technology is improving the fastest. That'd be the other thing I would also recommend, is we really should be pushing that if there is going to be pipelines through this area, that we should make sure that they are absolutely as safe as possible.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Done.
Okay. Or Bob? All right.
Hey, just one closing comment. When you buy a house and there's an underground oil tank, they make you test it, and they don't want you to have it. So I don't see the logic in allowing a pipeline to go through and pump oil through a neighborhood, but yet if my house has in-ground oil tank, I have to fill it with sand to get rid of it. If you could find the logic in that, let me know. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to say one final thing, which is the oil still has to move. So, as long as we're going to drive cars, we're going to heat our homes, use petroleum products, the oil is going to have to move from point A to point B. Over Christmas, I was speaking to a really smart guy who's a physicist and who does work with combustion engines, and he said, and he's as green as a person as I've ever met, for the next 50 to 100 years, we need to rely on fossil fuels to run our economy. Sometime well over the horizon, at least as far as we're concerned, other choices may be viable, but right now, we need both natural gas and petroleum products to run our country.
Now we're ready for roll call vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello? Oh, he's absent. Okay. Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
No.
Jim went to get,
Rob, come on back.
I hereby declare Ordinance 28, 2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. No. But we appreciate yours. Ordinances 29 and 30 will also have a combined hearing, as they are both related to electric capital, and it is appropriating, 29 is appropriating $40,000 electric capital improvement fund for a pickup truck and related equipment, and 30 is $120,000 for construction of a pole barn and additional related items. Anyone wishing to comment on ordinances 29 or 30, please step forward, state your name, your address. Seeing none, I close the hearing and call up ordinance 29, 2015.
Mayor, I move ordinance.
I've got to read it by title, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $40,000 from the Electric Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a pickup truck and related equipment.
Okay, now I'll move ordinance 29-2015.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 29, 2015 adopted and finally passed. I ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Now, ordinance 30, 2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $120,000 from the Electric Capital Improvement Fund for the construction of a pole barn and additional related items.
Carmella?
No, we had the combined hearing. Sorry.
All right, I'll move ordinance 30-2015.
And I will second that.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 30, 2015 adopted and finally passed, and I ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 31, 2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 166 of the Borough Code entitled Streets and Sidewalks to reduce sidewalk replacement permit fees.
I open the hearing for ordinance 31, 2015. Anyone wishing to comment on this ordinance, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mr. Mayor, move ordinance 31-2015.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 31, 2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now we're on to the second of invitation for discussion. This is when you may comment on anything. But again, keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please step up to the lectern, state your name, your address, and go ahead with your comments. Marlene, welcome.
Evening, my name is Marlene Dolan. I am one of the public health nurses at the Madison Health Department, and I first want to thank Councilman Walkowitz for his very thorough recap of the pending legislation regarding the religious exemption revisions for required vaccinations. And I also appreciate the council's consideration of supporting a resolution in the vein of that legislation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. Thank you. Mark? Or Brendan?
Hey, Brendan Keating again. I just wanted to, for the record, clear up something that was said before about oil pipeline. Oil being shipped by rail is a relatively new thing. The world's first oil pipeline was built in, I think it was definitely Pennsylvania. I thought it was 1861, but it says 1854 here, and that was to transport from the world's first oil well to a railroad. So as long as we've been commercially producing oil, it's being transported by rail.
I'm sorry, I meant in big volumes.
Yeah.
I'll cut you short by saying, I agree, it's been going on a long time, not in the volume it is today.
You know, the other thing too is I will agree with the whole fact that there is no real safe way to transport this stuff, but if I was a citizen of Madison, and I'm not, so I will just say as a citizen of New Jersey, I would hope that my, town representatives would be concerned about what was going on in my community and not necessarily what was going on, nationally, because really that's why I elected those people. So, thank you, and sorry if that was a little bit of a low blow, but.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to address that comment, please.
I'm
I'm allowed to address the comment that is in the rules, and while I agree, that's in our borough code, and I agree that we should be concerned about our constituents. But I think the best way for us to serve our constituents is to follow the law. I'm very sure that your rank and file Confederate soldier thought he was doing the right thing for his community when he decided to become a traitor to the United States. Maybe Robert E. Lee even thought the same thing. But at the end of the day, we have to follow the law, and we have a redress of grievance. And I fully support doing that, and I support, getting our elected representatives, our representatives who have offices here in Madison, our state senators, our U.S. senators involved, and I think we should definitely do that. But at the same time, we're we're a nation of laws, and it's best to follow them.
Okay, and just clarification, during public comment, there's nothing in the bylaws that says there's a, it is a time for the public to speak and for the council to
I apologize,
listen.
Mayor. I
So-
will never do it again.
Okay,
I
no,
thought
that's
we had
right.
the right to address a comment.
Okay, yeah. Mark, thank you.
Mark Alonzo, 186 Greenwood Ave. I'd like to call your attention to ordinance 22-2015. The ordinance asks for appropriation of $120,000 for the purchase of 2 trucks with accessories. Could you guys provide a characterization, description, or purpose for those trucks? And if it was stated, I apologize for my inattentiveness.
Ray, do we have a, they were purchased through the,
Department of Public Works.
and it's through the,
Lawrence County Co-op.
co-op, yep, and thank you. Go ahead,
Okay.
you're on a roll.
It's replacing 2 vehicles that have aged out because of poor condition. They're over 10 years old, they're advanced mileage, and they're not meeting the needs of the department. So this is just a normal scheduled replacement as recommended by the strategic plan committees. And we embrace that. And annually, we try to replace the oldest stock at DPW, and this was discussed during the capital budget process, agreed by all the governing body, and now we're just purchasing the actual vehicles through the co-op. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Anyone else wishing to comment? Seeing none, we move on to introduction of ordinances.
Ordinance scheduled for the first reading have a hearing date set for May 11th, 2015. All will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, and made available to members of the public requesting copies.
I call up ordinances for first reading and ask the Borough Clerk to read said ordinances by title.
Ordinance 32, 2015. Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $60,000 from the Electric Capital Improvement Fund for basketball court lighting replacement at Dodge Field.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 32-2015.
Second the motion.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance 33, 2015.
Ordinance 33, 2015, ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 166 of the Borough Code entitled Streets and Sidewalks regarding outdoor dining at business establishments.
Mayor, I move ordinance 33-2015.
A second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
All right, consent agenda resolutions. Will clerk please read the statement?
The consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mayor, I move resolution 129 through R144.
I second the motion.
Any discussion or any resolutions that need to be pulled? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
There is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers.
Public safety, $15,750.04. Health and public assistance, $4,675.83. Public works and engineering, $171,189.29. Community affairs, $72,268.69. Finance and borough clerk, $33,506.17. Utilities, $516,610.37, a total of $814,039.
Mayor, I move the vouchers.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalinello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan,
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Walkowitz.
Yes.
Mr. Rowe.
Yes.
There is no new business.
So with that, pardon me, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you all. And Ostry, thanks again for covering for me.
Sure thing, Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? That's great. It's wonderful.
Somehow I can't take time, I can't
Tell,
take all my credit.
tell your more handsome but not as bright, boss that, you should do it more often.